Hi, I'm Dominic Candeloro. I'm curator of the library here. I've been associated with the Italian Cultural Center in one way or another for the last, 45, 50 years. And I'm really pleased to see you all here, to see you supporting our efforts to save our stories. That's our theme today, tomorrow, and always. We are in an effort to save every scrap of evidence that Italians existed in Chicago from the 1850s to the present and beyond. So I'm so glad that you've in one way or another, you've supported this saving of our stories. And today, the mistress of ceremonies will be Anna Gajuli Weiss. She, more than anybody, is the heart and soul of this book, to the point where she wrote, edited, and actually composed each of the pages, placed each of the photographs on into the book that you are looking at right now. So in a very important way, this is Anna's book, and we are proud to pass the microphone to her and let her tell us about her experience and introduce people from the book who contributed to the book, who can tell you a little bit about saving our stories.
Hello everyone and welcome. Thank you for coming here today. Thank you, Dominic, for that lovely tribute. I've been here about 11 years, and actually my first introduction to Casa Italia was because I picked up a book at Barnes & Noble, and if any one of you know anything about me, is I love books a lot. In fact, that's one of the title of my article in the book is just 3 books. So I was waiting for a movie to start, and I was in a Barnes & Noble, and I picked a book off the bookshelf, and it just happened to be a book by Dominic Candeloro. And later that year, I found myself at Casa Italia, and I had my book with me, and there was Dominic Candeloro, and I asked him if he would do me the honor of signing this book. So, as one of the co-editors, I want to just say that it's been a true pleasure to work with my 2 other co-editors. It truly is a collaborative effort. We all bring to the table our own ideas, very good ideas, and because of that, we have to compromise and learn how to work together. So it's been an exercise in compromise, which is the key word to getting along with anyone in the world today, right? So. One of the things that we did differently in the second volume of Italian Women in Chicago is that we divided, it's an anthology, a collection of different articles. And if you know anything about immigrant stories or immigration stories, there are some universals, but there are also, we all bring a unique immigrant story to this. So one of the things that we did is we divided the book into chapters, but chapters had a certain category. One of the categories was cultural influences. So the idea is that we're all influenced by our culture, by our Italian culture. And the stories in this particular category have to do with how the writers felt influenced by their culture. So the first author that I'm going to introduce is Roxanne Pilot. She is an English professor. She has taught at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and is currently teaching at North Central College in Naperville. Roxanne Pilot also contributed to Italian Women in Chicago, Volume 1, and she has written an article for this anthology as well. Roxanne, if you're in the audience, there you are. I recognized your coat. I had to look for you.
Hi, well, I'm honored to be the first speaker here. I'm honored to be here. This is the connection with Casa Italia has been very close to my heart over the years. And I congratulate Dominic and Anna and Frank and Christina on their efforts for putting this all together, this new volume. It looks to be, this is the first time I've seen it, so it looks to be very special. And I'm very happy that I could be here today. I think I'll read just a tiny snippet, and what I wrote about was something that I had been kind of working on and off. Actually an essay that's kind of really close to my heart because it relates to so much of my own background and upbringing. And it's called Dough, Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit of an Italian-American Legacy. And I'm going to read just a little bit and just talk to you kind of about how the piece emerged over the past couple of years. Make sure I get that. At the grocery store, I spend entirely too much time studying the carbohydrate count on the back of the bags of Italian bread. Sadly, that number is significant. More than once, I've wrestled with taking off the 5 pounds that too much bread can actually spackle onto my body. I figure I've lost that same 5 pounds at least 40 times in my lifetime. That's easily 200 pounds of carb-induced weight. That's a Pillsbury dough girl. A recent article quotes food critic Zagat, who tell me that carbs are cool again. Experts from the Mayo Clinic and WebMD note that carbs, if you pick the right ones, are actually an important part of our nutritional upload. I want to believe them. To their point, I argue with myself, my Italian-born grandparents all ate bread and none of them were overweight. In fact, my grandma and nana, who emigrated from Italy in the Great Wave over 100 years ago, each respectively made at least 2 large loaves of homemade bread each twice a week, well into their late 70s. Both of these women seemed indifferent to their waistlines and believed instead that all food was to be enjoyed in moderation. I am a 3rd-generation descendant of 4 Italian immigrants from the Mezzogiorno, part of the baby boomer branch of Italian Americans. And there's a serious part of me that wants to replicate and preserve the crafts of the 1st generation and eventually to pass them on, to keep them alive for our own kids, and especially now the grandkids who think it's an absolute kick when their nonna tells them that we're going to make dough. I try to explain. Their great-great-grandparents cooked and made things from scratch and by hand because they had to. What their American dream has done for me and for them is that we get to choose to make foods from scratch, like home-baked bread, as a kind of hobby, infused by memory and a longing. For what? I don't exactly know. Maybe a simpler time, better tasting food. What I do know is that there's a cosmic pulley in my brain and apparently in my taste buds that regularly leads me back to my ethnic roots to imitate what I've learned from my foremothers. I've learned how to can tomatoes, to make homemade noodles and ravioli. I can crank out Italian sausage and fashion Easter calzone, Christmas pizza fritte, pizzelle, and crostata. I can make pancetta stuffed braciole and veal frittata. I know how to desalt salted cod and saute it with prunes for bacala. And I've cleaned the honeycomb of tripe to make my grandfather's favorite stew, though I don't really like that dish much myself. I don't have to make my own bread, but I want to. There's a world of difference in that motivation, and it brings me back to a world of memories and reconnects me to the women who helped shape my outlook on life and love and family. I miss them more than bread. So what essentially, this essay sort of incubated in the welcoming presence of the Italian American Historical Association, which I presented a very early version of this. And then I put it aside, as as we sometimes do as writers when we think, is this really all that special, you know? I went back to it and I started tinkering with it when Dominic put the call out for essays, in part because I felt that it really, that it was something that was so important to me to explain this connection that I felt to my grandmothers and to my own parents who continued the cooking lessons that they had learned. And I felt very determined to pass that on to my own grandchildren now. And I wanted to explore that area of desire, of trying to keep things connected, to try and add more pearls to the necklace that we all try to wear, or more links to the chains that we all try to wear that represent our connections to the past. Because again, as we all know, if we forget our past, you know, our future may not be as bright. So I think that cooking is a wonderful way to connect all the generations. As soon as you get people's hands in flour and water and yeast, they're happy. And I think that there are many opportunities as families to try and experiment with these ideas and the family recipes. There are lots of opportunities now online to make your own family cookbook, which is something that we are doing as an extended family. My husband's, his ancestors are all from Poland, and so we've put the call out to all different family members to contribute to a family cookbook that it's one of the templates you can get online to just pull things together over the miles. So I encourage you to do that, but I think you can really discover things about yourself as you cook and as you cook with your family and as you pull your memories together. And if anything this Christmas and this holiday season, because we certainly are maybe more prone to cook now than other times, is I wish you that opportunity to find your own connections and heritage in cooking for the holidays and being together. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Roxanne. Our second author is a fellow volunteer here at Casa Italia, Terry Quilico. He's he's a talented writer and has also a correspondent for De Frannoy. And he's written several plays, which we've acted out here at Casa Italia Library for I.A. Literati, and we performed. And he's written 2 articles for this anthology. He's written an article on Laura Fermi, which appears under Cultural Influences, and another article on Mama Celeste, under Entrepreneurial Spirit. So we compiled several women that are worthy of that category. So welcome, Terry. Would you like to say a few words about your experience in writing these 2 articles?
Just quickly, thank you, Anna. Well, as she mentioned, 2 articles. One about creating the first chain reaction for an atomic bomb, and the other one about Abundanza, Mama Celeste. Out of the 2 articles, no doubt about it, the Abundanza one gives you more joy than the chain reaction at Stag Field and Hyde Park. But it was a great privilege and honor to write these 2 articles. And is Sissy, by the way, is Sissy here? Sissy Brazil from the restaurant? All right, they were supposed to be out here. They're from Clara's in Woodridge. It's a great place. Mama Celeste tradition continues through that restaurant. So if you have a chance, go out there. They've got a little museum. They sell books, cookbooks, and they'll be selling this book as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Terry. Actually, I've eaten at that restaurant, Clara's in Woodridge. I think they opened up the year I was married, so back in the 80s. They make their own pasta. Speaking of fresh pasta, yes, very good food. Anyway, our second author here, our third author here today is Mary Albanese. She and her sister have contributed 2 articles comparing and contrasting their grandmother and their mother. So Mary is a graphic designer, Mary Albanese, and she has participated in a couple of our genealogy events here at Casa Italia when we have them on, and she's currently working on her own family. Yes, genealogy, and so we persuaded her to tell her own story and her family's story, and so this is an initial first step into that. So welcome, Mary, and would you like to say a few words about your experience?
Yes. Together with my sister Elizabeth, we wrote two stories. One about my grandmother, Maria Panicola Albanese, who was born in Trapani in Mazzara del Vallo. She came to Chicago in 1913 and met my grandfather, Giuseppe Albanese, but she died in the 1918 influenza epidemic, shortly after giving birth to my uncle Albert and my father John. My father was only 11 months old when she died. So she was a mystery to us. I later learned through doing my genealogy that there were many Sicilian Americans in the Chicagoland area who could have told me a lot about my grandmother, Maria Panicola, but unfortunately I didn't know their names and didn't know too much about them. I'm finding out by doing my research on ancestry and on family search who some of these people, second, third, fourth cousins are. I didn't really, all I knew about my grandmother was a portrait on her headstone, a beautiful portrait where she has a white rose in her lap. It's on the edge of Queen of Heaven Cemetery. The other story is about my mother, Anna DeSantis Albanese. She was born in Waterbury, Connecticut, but when she was about 9 years old, her father, Francesco, decided to go back to Italy without telling her. So she left a lot of stuff behind, and the family resettled in Farino in the province of Avellino, about 40 miles from Naples. And there they were with World War II, with the soldiers marching in and out of the village. And she survived World War II. She has more interesting war stories than my father, who fought in the Pacific. Then when in about 1950, the family came back to the United States, and my mother decided to visit her first cousin, Josephine, who lived in Chicago, with her husband, Albert Albanese, who you've heard about in the other story. In the home of Albert and Josephine, she met my father, who was the younger brother of Albert, and that's how she came to the Chicagoland area. They married and raised a family in northwestern Indiana, but then they returned to Chicago. I didn't know much about, I really still don't know much about my grandmother, Maria. I don't know if she liked to cook. I don't know if she liked to sing or sew. I know my mother very well. My mother loved to do all of those things. And they did look a little bit alike. They both had very curly, dark brown hair, and their faces are a little round like mine. But I'm working now using a combination of family search, which I learned how to use through Dan Niesek here at various classes at Casa Italia. And I also put my DNA on Ancestry.com, and that has helped really verify some of the cousins and relationships that that were just, in family records, but you didn't really know if the records were accurate. So I'm working out the puzzles, and I was very happy to contribute these two stories, especially working with my sister Liz. Thank you.
Mary's two articles are an example of what we're trying to promote here at Casa Italia, to save our stories. Another category in our book is shattering glass ceilings. So a lot of for women firsts, especially Italian women first. So our next author is Dr. Jeff Gentile. Dr. Jeff, are you in the audience? Here we go. Dr. Jeff has recently published his own book on the Arcolian Dental Arts Society. He is a historian for the Arcolian Dental Arts, and maybe he can explain more about his contribution to this and what the Arcolians are all about. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Privileged to be here. The article, you can read it yourself, or the chapter in the book. Santina Laturi was one of 3 women in her dental class back in the day. So she set the tone for women in dentistry, which there's a lot of today, so it's a great thing. She was a pioneer. She opened the door. She was a businesswoman. She was a professional. And typical story, real quick, you know, born on Taylor Street in an apartment upstairs. The parents had a grocery store, fell on hard times during the Depression, lost their grocery store, had no money, but still instilled her to go to school and make something of herself. She won the Vito Marzullo Scholarship Award, which helped her pay for her college and her dental school. And she was a great woman. She was the first woman to be president of the Arcolian Dental Arts Society, which is the Italian dentist of Chicago, which I'm the historian of, in 1961, and she set the way for that. And she was the first Arcolian of the Year as a woman. She was the first woman as a board examiner for dental examiners. So great stuff done by a woman, setting the way, and it's all good, positive stuff. The one thing I want to say is Dominic inspired me to write my book about the history of the Arcolians, so I want to thank Dominic. Frankie inspired me to write this chapter in this book. He asked me several times, I kept saying no because I was too busy, but I thank you for having me do that. And more importantly, when I wrote, as historian of the Arcolians, we eat and drink very well. We eat and drink better than any professional group on the planet. I came up with the PCP, promote, celebrate, and preserve our Italian heritage. So a round of applause for the people here at Casa that do it and have taken me under their wing and let me hang out with them and be part of all this. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And we also have a category on poetry. So we have a couple poems in our book that are a tribute to women, and Martine, a fellow volunteer here at Casa Italia. Martine, oh, there you are, Martine. Martine was good enough to translate one of the, and write an introduction to one of the poems. So I'd like to present my colleague, Dr. Martine Gesso, professor of anthropology at Northeastern University, and he's here with us today.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for giving me this opportunity of knowing about the work, the poems of Guerrino Floriani. Anybody heard about him? No. He was born in Friuli during the First World War and came to Chicago. He worked all of his life here and died in Park Ridge in 2009. Shortly before he died, the commune in Friuli where he was born offered to publish his poems. They're called, the book is called Bondi Friul. And there is a very beautiful poem that he dedicated to his daughter, his only daughter, Pierina Mina, the only child that he had. Una sera molto calma, in quel maggio tutto in fiore, tu entrasti nella vita e anche nel nostro cuore. That's the beginning of the poem. I couldn't memorize more of it for you today. But in any case, what I liked of this poem, which is very rhythmic, very, very beautiful, is that he shows his sadness because he had to he wasn't able to share with his daughter parts of her upbringing. So that's something that us, whoever left the country where they were born, has to deal with, the estrangement from your loved ones. Luckily, at the end, he turns things around and he says he's very glad that his daughter married, has a wonderful husband and has children of her own, that somehow in them she puts all of the love that she has in herself. Mm-hmm. So, Guerrino Floriani and Bondi Friuli. He also wrote in Friulan, but of course I wouldn't be able to work on that in Italian and in English too. Thank you.
Thank you, Marti. It's time for me to pass the torch on to my fellow co-editor, Frank Di Pietro, who has 2 articles in this 3. I'm sorry. 3 articles. Wow, you're a major contributor. So, thank you, Frank.
Thank you. Just real quick, I mean, it was an honor to be a part of this. It's, I learned, it was amazing, like the wide variety of all these accomplishments of what these women did. And one particular story, which that's what a book like this is all about, is it keeps a story alive. There was this club in like the late 1800s of these Italian women, well-to-do, and really well-to-do, and they took their purpose was to assist and help Italian immigrants that were in need. So who would think in like, the late 1800s that there was this well-to-do group of Italian women, but there were, and it beats down these images, and there's a story about it in the book, and that's what's great about this book. It keeps these stories alive. So I'm really, happy about that. So I would like to introduce some of the contributors. I'm going to start with Patrizia Alaimo, who she wrote a story about her. First of all, she is like a rock of the San Francesco di Paola Society. Okay, she's a force. And she wrote a story about her family and about her devotion to San Francesco di Paola, which is in Calabria. Please come up, Patrizia.
Grazie, Frank. First, I just want to say, this is such an honor to put down in writing, I'm sorry, something that goes back years and years and years. By my grandparents, my parents, and has kept me going all along. The strength that it takes to leave your home, to come to a strange place, to not know the language, to learn something. My parents only had a 3rd grade education, but they did it. They forged through a war, through famine, through not having money, to come to this country, to create a family. We need to write those stories. We need to write those stories down because our future needs to know what it took to get here. Money is important, education, absolutely everything is important, but your history gives you an identity. I'm 1st generation Italian American. I'm very proud of that. My husband was from Italy, was born in Italy, came to this country with the same purpose. My parents and my father especially was devoted to San Francesco di Paola from a child. They would walk days from their little town to go to Paola where his church was to give thanks for everything that they had. And they would do that yearly walk. No cars, no things, but just walk. That is something that needs to be remembered. I'm so happy that I was able to at least put down a portion of that story in this book, and I thank everyone for that. I don't want to go on longer, which I could, I'm sorry. But thank you for that opportunity. I hope that this continues. We can't lose what we have here. It's very important for our Italian American history and for our children and our grandchildren to continue. I believe in all of this. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrizia. Now we're all gonna cry, okay? Okay, next up, we have a son who wrote a story of his mother. His name is Gabriele Romanucci. He wrote about his mother, Anna Maria Romanucci, who did a lot of amazing things in this life. What I always think of her as the pasta queen, the fresh pasta queen of Chicago. And the beauty of this is she knew nothing about this. He kept it a secret. She came here today still not knowing. She thought it was just a Christmas party. And here she's featured in a book and on the cover. So, Gabriele, please come up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Gabriele Romanucci, and I just wanted to thank you all for coming out here today to celebrate these amazing women, because it is truly something to honor. So, the story is not really mine to tell. And it goes back to a story I heard a long time ago about La Pietà. When the artist was asked, how did you create such a beautiful piece of work? The artist said, it wasn't really mine. I just released it from the sculpture, from the rock, and it was always there. So this is not my story to tell, it's their story to tell. And I know I'm speaking for my brother as well. We're very proud to be Italian Americans. We live in an amazing country. We have an amazing heritage, and we wouldn't have this today if it wasn't for the strength of our parents coming here scared and all alone and breaking down all the barriers that were put in front of them. So again, it's not our story, it's their story, and the book is just a vehicle to get there. That's all I have to say today. I want to wish you all a very Merry Christmas, Buon Natale, and just go hug your families, because that's what it's all about.
Thank you. So next up is a lady that was here at an event, and I got to talking to her, and she was just amazing, and it's this amazing story. So I said, you got to write your story for this book. And thankfully she did. Her name is Letizia Sorano, and she came to America a little later in the 90s and ended up eventually, what she still has today, she opened a bakery and a restaurant on Division Street, kind of between Damon and Western Avenue, and just an amazing story. So Letizia, if you could say a few words, please.
I want to tell you I don't speak English very well because I study French. I didn't want to learn English when I was in my country because I didn't want to come. Sorry. And my story is more incredible because I didn't want to come, pushed by my husband and our 3 children that he sent to American school in Rome. So we arrived here when we were old. I was 45. My husband almost 50, real Italian, zero idea what was this country. But after a first impact, terrible, that everybody got, I started to feel that the freedom that this country gives to you. You say, how? Freedom that you can do whatever you want. So after if you have a book, after I teach 1 year in DePaul, Italian, because I was a teacher in Italy, high school teacher of Latin and Italian history. I love a sweet, so I say, why I don't start to do sweet and sell it? So now I'm finished to have a bakery, and after also a restaurant. The fact to be able to do wherever you want, if you want. And the other thing that impressed me like crazy, like Italian, the availability of people to help you. If you are in Italy, the people get scared. No, don't tell them, otherwise they pass me. They don't hear, Letizia, come, I know this, do you want to learn? I was impressed. Now, after 30 years later, I am my own village in Division Street. I was the first store, and I have to say the truth. I feel both Italian and American. both. I love both country in a different way. That was no easy to understand the American mentality. Was no easy in the beginning, but now I understand it, I appreciated all the positive things that they come with. I would have speak much better if I can speak Italian, ma I don't know how many people speak Italian, so sì, avete già visto tutti che io non volevo venire, ma adesso quando vado in Italia e loro provano a parlarmi male degli Stati Uniti, non lo accetto. Non lo accetto e spiego come sono le cose veramente.
Bravo.
Insurance, they don't take you in when you go in an hospital. Avete capito o no che gli ospedali qui sono privati? E che voi paragonate gli ospedali italiani, che sono comunali, al nostro Cook County. Vai al Cook County e non paghi. E loro sanno, Questa è giusto una piccola nota. Comunque, niente, io ringrazio. Io e mio marito siamo a capo di una grande famiglia, abbiamo tutte le tradizioni italiane, dal cibo all'affetto, la disponibilità e l'aiuto che diamo ai nostri e a chi non ha. Ma siamo anche americani per tante altre cose. Io ringrazio questo paese perché mi ha accettato, mi ha adottato e mi ha fatto fare qualcosa che in Italia io sarei stata la moglie del dottor Sorano e basta, insegnante, catechista, ma sarei stata Letizia Sorano. Qui invece ho potuto esprimermi da sola con le mie forze e ottenere un bel risultato. Grazie America.
Next up, I had the pleasure of meeting a great woman that she came here from Rome to work at the Consul General's office. She's a director of education, so she's in charge of all the schools in the district, in the Consul's district, of keeping Italian classes. So asked her to put her story in. I'm so happy that she accepted that and that she's in it, because it's an amazing, a different take of someone who's only been here just a few years. So Marina Lenza.
Hello everybody. Hello Consul General of Italy Marco Bartoli. Hello everybody. I really am very happy to be here today. It is a privilege to me, and so I want to thank Casa Italia, Professor Dominique Candeloro and Frank Di Piero and Anna Weiss that invited me for joining this wonderful event and presentation. Some months ago, Frank Di Piero asked me to produce something about my experience, and that will be included in this Savior Story publication. As director of the Education Office of the Italian Consulate, I'm engaged in supporting Italian language and culture teaching in the American schools and universities. I'm deeply grateful to Casa Italia for preserving the Italian culture and heritage and supporting Italian language and supporting our job in the Italian consulate. Congrats for this book that is focused on women experience. I'm honored to be here and very thankful to you for allowing me to bring my short testimony. I'm so much proud to have been included in this collection of testimonies of Italianity among women in Chicago, and find myself in such heterogeneous collection of both famous and simple women who have left a deep mark in the community and bring back memories of the life experiences of many people in the neighborhoods and community. My experience in Chicago started in 2021 has meant and means a lot to me, both on a professional and personal experience. And so I can say that it has a double significance. I was attracted, when I was younger, I was attracted by experiences of diverse cultural context abroad. And in the end, at the end of my career, when I was already 60 years old, and then I can understand what Letizia was just saying about coming here when you're no longer a girl. And it was really an accomplishment to me to be able to work and live here. And Midwest welcomed me in a very difficult moment. It was pandemic period, but I always felt a friendly feeling, and the possibility to represent Italy, doing my best to spread the Italian culture and language, disseminate through the Italian language a cultural model inspired by humanitas, the values of respect for others and hospitality, combining modernity and tradition. It was and it is a great challenge. I think that really it was a great opportunity to me. I'm very grateful and honored, even knowing that in some years, in a short period of time, I will go back to Italy, and like my grandfather in 1920, I will leave USA and go back to Italy, because history has always repeats itself. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And the last contributor that I'm going to introduce is Bill Dalcero, who actually wrote 3 stories for the book, and I have to, really give him credit. Was it 4? I thought it was 3. No, it is 3. He's telling me it's 3. One of them, we came across this lady, Carmelita Pope, who had just had this incredible life here in Chicago, was this actress and used to do commercials and was in plays, and she was a childhood friend of Marlon Brando, and I'm like, Bill, this story's got to be in this book. Would ya? And he goes, okay, and he wrote it. Bill is going to introduce, one of his stories was about the original diva of opera in Chicago, Vivian della Chiesa, who we have in the house. So would you stand up, Vivian? And Bill, please come and explain a few things about Vivian.
Okay, you can take una fotografia con la diva after the presentation. Like Frank said, yes, and as everyone else has been repeating, you have to learn these stories, and once you start researching, you'd be surprised at the things you find out. This story kind of goes back for me to 2007, 17 years ago, kind of hard to believe. But I initiated, co-funded, and co-wrote a television special for Channel 11 called And They Came to Chicago, a DVD, and I was the chief researcher for that. And one of the people that I kind of stumbled upon was Vivian della Chiesa. I'd never heard of her. But by the time I found out about her, the video was already done. Channel 11 was going to show it on television. There wasn't time to really go back and delve into her story. And I thought, well, she's very interesting. Maybe I'll get back to this one day, because I used to write for Fra Noyank also. Never got around to it. I was teaching full time. And then Frank and Dominic and Anna put this great book together and came to me and said, hey, do you have any story ideas for this book? And I thought, well, maybe it's time to look back on her story, Vivian della Chiesa. And of course, when I did the research, I was finding out more and more about it. And this is why it's so important to tell these stories. You find out all these great things that no one knows about, and you want to spread the news. Vivian della Chiesa was born in Chicago to musical parents who loved the opera. In fact, she says in the 1920s, when she was growing up as a little child, her parents would not sing her the popular songs, they would sing her arias from La Boheme and Turandot and all that kind of thing. She won a contest, a singing contest in Chicago, over 1,000 other women, when she was 20 years old, and it got her a contract to go to New York to become an opera singer. And from the 1930s through the early 1960s, she was well known, not only in Chicago, but across the United States. People knew her name. She was popular because of her opera performances here in New York. She did popular songs. This was interesting. At the 1959 World Series at Comiskey Park in Chicago, she was so popular she was asked to come to Chicago and sing the national anthem, which she did. And then just after she retired from singing, she got into early television in Chicago. She had a show on ABC Channel 7 in the early 1960s. I'm still trying to research this. That is like, and one of the people who worked for her on the show was a young man named Phil Donahue, who would go on to become his own talk show host later on. But when you think about this, I have to verify this, because this is kind of an amazing thing that an Italian-American woman in Chicago may have started television talk shows, right? Donahue, then Oprah. They should owe her like a little thank you, mille grazie, okay? This is from the early 1950s. Let's see if we find that. So Vivian Della Chiesa, Playhouse, 1951. So this is a great thing about YouTube. You can literally find a lot of things up there. It's in the book. There's the YouTube clips you can kind of look up. But notice when you go to YouTube, look what comes up. So thankfully, with the new technology, we're preserving more of these stories. And again, thank you for the opportunity. Everyone here sharing your stories. And she has a great voice. Look her up on YouTube and listen to her sing. Thank you.
Okay, Dominic and Laura, please come back. We're almost done, I promise.
Well, I'm really pleased, and I think that you've gotten a taste of the quality of the stories and the quality of the writers who are represented in this book. There are many more, including me. I've got a couple of interesting stories. There was a large family that had 20 children that were toasted and celebrated at the World's Fair in 1934. And the Latoria family, I've got some information about them. And we also have some information in the book about the Maria Adelaide Society. See that? Well, they gave us a bunch of, somebody dropped off a bunch of pictures and news releases and news clips and this and that about 15 or 20 years ago. And I opened up that archive file and wrote an article about them. They're the group that formed in the 1890s of the wealthy northern Italians, their children, the daughters and the wives of the wealthy northern Italians who reigned in the early years before World War I. And they supported Mother Cabrini. Of course, we've got Mother Cabrini in the book in a number of ways. Artist Mayo Carbone, a good friend of ours, he's in fact in a few days going to open up an exhibit in the Termini, Stazione Termini, as a tribute to Mother Cabrini during the 2025 Jubilee years. But I've got two other people here on TV here. Okay, is our the scholar who introduced our work, and you may have seen a clip of her before.
Buongiorno a tutti.
Here she is.
This is Christina Morocco, and I am joining you today from Genova, Italy, where I've overstayed after a conference for a few weeks. Conference on the Diaspora Italiani, which is really fitting to the event today as well. So I'm sorry I can't be there with everyone, but I'm glad that you're having the event together and that you're all having a wonderful time, because I know you are. I am a professor in the Chicago area. I teach creative writing and women's literature and ethnic literature at Elgin Community College in Elgin. And I was not born, but completely raised in the Chicago area, and that's where my family comes from, particularly Taylor Street and Melrose Park. So it was my absolute honor. I was so excited when I was invited to write the foreword for this anthology and to help a little bit with the editing. So the new issue of Italian American Women in Chicago is absolutely wonderful. And I can't overstate the importance of this volume. It was a delight to join forces with Dominic Candeloro and Frank DiPietro, Anna Weiss, and everyone else. And I certainly hope to keep working with everyone in the future on these types of important structures and recordings of our history as Italian Americans in Chicago. This book and everyone who's in it, everyone who gifts it, who purchases it, who reads it, who recommends it, everyone is active in the historical and human act of keeping our stories alive, of setting them in print, making them accessible not just to ourselves right now, but also in the future, to children and grandchildren, generations to come. I cannot overstate the importance of capturing lived experience, be it through ethnography, research, creative writing, poetry, audio recording, video. Now is always the time. It's essential. So I want to also say I'm so proud of the people at Casa Italia, so proud of the Diaspora Italiani of Chicago, and so proud of the women showcased in this anthology and beyond. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I just want to encourage people not just to read, but to write your own stories, to write the stories of your ancestors, to create and to preserve, because this is ultimately the essence of us being put down and made indelible. So I hope you all have a wonderful event, and I hope to see everyone soon. Grazie mille.
Our next video presentation is not by one of the authors, it's by the son of one of our authors, Angela DiCarlo. It's Mark DiCarlo, TV personality and food presenter from California. So do we have that there? We're working on that. What Angela did was write a tribute to the life of her mother, who came in about 1907, and she came from the town of Richigliano, which is one of the oldest contributing villages in Italy to the Italian migration. And the Richiglianese have been very significant as politicians, sometimes crooked politicians, sometimes businessmen of great vision, and just ordinary folk in the Chicago Italian American story. One example of their dominance was as news vendors throughout Chicago. In the days when people read newspapers, and they were a really big deal, the Richiglianese had a monopoly of the newsstands, the best newsstands around the Loop and in some of the neighborhoods. And they often got a lot of coverage in the newspaper because they worked for the newspaper reporters did feature articles on them. And so if you want to study the Richiglianese, you just go through the newspaper archives, and you can type in Richigliano, and you'll get a lot of articles about these Richiglianese news vendors who were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary and that kind of thing, and nice good pictures of them. Another thing that they did, and it now can be revealed because in the state is involved in this enterprise as well, and that is they were bookies, and they were able to prosper at that level in that field of enterprise as well. We don't have Mark. Well, we'll put it on the Facebook, or we'll put it somewhere so you can check it out. It's my pleasure now to introduce Consul General Bartoli. He's only been in Chicago a relatively short time. I've been in Chicago, as many of you know, for quite a while. I've gotten to know a lot of consul generals. There are many different kinds. Some were very flamboyant, some were very reticent, some were very old-fashioned, some were part of modern culture in what might have been a shocking way in the past. But our current Consul General has distinguished himself already, in my mind, and this is an old mind and can compare him to a lot of Consul Generals, as unique, in that he is present. This is, if I'm a historian and I did a lot of research on this. This is the only time a Consul General has ever attended indoors a cultural event at the Casa Italia. So, welcome, Consul General Bartoli. And as a reward for that, you get the book in Italian. I wrote every word of this. About the Italians in Chicago. So in addition to your reading it in English, you can now have it in Italian. You can share it with your colleagues so they can know what it is they're representing in Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, here we go.
Can you hear me? Yes, perfectly. Thank you very much, Professor. It's really a pleasure to be here today. I mean, you were saying that it's special, the new Consul General. It's probably special even because he couldn't be on time today. So first of all, my apologies for being late. I mean, it's a point and honor for me, wherever I move and wherever it's possible, to try and use public transport to move around, at least until I have a car. And then I tried today, and then I realized that here in Chicago, when a bus is due, doesn't mean that it's due. It means that it's due in the near future. And so there was some problem. But I mean, the good thing is that I was able to make it. It's first time for me at Casa Italia. It's very emotional. Professor, as you know, I thank you very much for this gift. This is really appreciated, because my first avenue to better understand the history, the profile, and the strong traditions that have been built up by Italian American community in Chicago has been your book, which I've read in English, the Kindle version, and it really opened up so much knowledge for me. And so that when I landed in Chicago, I already had an idea, which was very partial, I would say, because the history of the community here is much more rich, much more complex, is because you need, in order to better understand the history of the community, you need to talk to the people. And that's the main reason why I try to be present in as many events as possible, because I need to listen directly from the people, from the representatives of the community, their stories. And today's event is very emotional for me for another reason, because my grandmother actually was born in Philadelphia. They migrated from a place which was not far from Ricignano. So, so I know they are very good at math, and people from Ricignano. And the family moved back to Italy before the Second World War. They were, but still I remember, she never brought the memories of the time in Philadelphia. The only recollection is what she told us, grandchildren, of their experience. And it was really, touching for me. And as soon as I had the opportunity to apply for a position in the United States, I felt that was a huge, unique opportunity for me to narrow the emotional distance between myself and the history of my grandmother in the United States. So what I'm hearing today, it really touched me even personally. But I want to add one thing. The histories of these wonderful Italian American women is very much entrenched in our culture, in our history. Italy is a country, despite what sometimes you can read, is a country where women have always gained, with all their efforts, an important position within the society. It's a country that now has a woman prime minister, many women who are successful entrepreneurs, women who are professionals, successful professionals in the society, and at the same time they are able to carry on even the family duties, which is exceptional, is really exceptional. And as I said in one of my speeches, as I was starting my experience and my adventure, I would say, in Chicago, they are really exceptional ladies, the Italian American and Italian women in the Chicago area. Better to work with us than to have them against us. So thank you. Thank you very much again for this invitation. Thank you for your talk, and I wish you all your families the happiest, merriest Christmas holidays. Thank you very much.